Good afternoon, and welcome to Bourbon, Bikes, and Business with Hank and Blaise. Hopefully you'll give us a like and a follow. If you haven't caught our first episode, this is episode number 2. We're just getting started with our new podcast. Today we're going to cover 3 topics. I'm going to discuss a little bit about my 4 days to Kentucky in May of last year, I think it was that I went. We're going to cover why we ride bikes, which would be an interesting conversation in itself. And then lastly, we're going to finish with marketing your business post-COVID. So how you doing tonight, Hank?
Blaise, how much you been drinking? You said good afternoon. It's dark outside. What are you on your 3rd glass over there?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. No, I'm doing okay. I'm ready to have a little pour. I'm ready to talk some bourbon business and bikes with you.
Cool.
And, hey, our first episode is out on YouTube, and we're actually getting some pretty good hits on it.
That's cool. Yeah, so we're live on.
Everyone tune in out there.
All the major streams, Apple, Spotify are the 2 busiest, but we're on about another dozen others beyond that. And our first YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Find us on YouTube. So the links are in the podcast. Actually, at the bottom of the podcast, you'll be able to see our link for our YouTube channel as well. So what are we drinking tonight, Hank? What do you got on your end?
So tonight, I got one of my favorites. Again, I know all of these bottles are probably, I could call my favorite, but this one really is delicious. This is a Baker's 7. Hold on, how can I get to the camera?
There you go. Little to your, there you go.
This is a Jim Beam product, and it's similar to the Rare Breed in that it's sweet, but with a little bit of that cinnamon spice on the back end. It's delicious. It's 107 proof. Excellent. And I'm going to share a little secret to everyone out there. You can see the age statement there. So it's Baker's 7 because it's supposed to be a 7-year. So you can see this one is 7 years and 2 months, if you can see that. But if you look carefully, when you go to your liquor store, they have all kinds of different age statements. If you look very carefully, you can find one like this, which is 8 years and 7 months, almost close to 9 years. Sorry. So for the same amount of money, you can get almost a 9-year bourbon as opposed to a 7-year bourbon, even though they're theoretically the same. So
your bourbon tip of the day, right?
That's my bourbon tip, and this is what I'm going to be drinking. So how about you?
I've got something I haven't had before. This is a Lux Row product called Ezra Brooks 99 proof.
Yeah.
From Lux Row in Bardstown, which I did visit. I'll talk about this slightly in a minute here. But this is a pretty good pour too. It's just your general everyday, not quite as cinnamony as, say, like an Old Forester, but a good sip and drink for tonight. So we're going to roll with that, see what happens here.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
To the many complications we've had with episode 2 thus far. So may it be smoother in the future.
Hope we get through this one.
I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah, right. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about, I did a trip to Kentucky last May. It was sort of a birthday trip.
I wasn't invited on that one.
No, you weren't.
No apology necessary.
Although we did hit one of your cities you and I have been to before. So I went from Maryland to Atlanta to Nashville to Louisville. So it was really like a 10-day adventure. But I hung out in Louisville with my better half for about 4 days. We rolled into Bardstown, which I highly recommend you stay in Bardstown. Number one, we learned that. We ended up staying in Louisville, which was fine. Not quite as nice. Bardstown is about 30, 40 minutes south of Louisville.
I think about Louisville.
Louisville. You say however you want. I'll say however I want. Louisville. It's those damn Northerners. Anyway. So there's distilleries all around that area. I don't know. I forget how many distilleries there are. But tonight I just want to give everybody a couple tips. If you're planning a trip, I got about 4 or 5 tips here, so I'll run through them real quick.
So before you hit the tips, just to provide some context to everyone out there, how long is this bourbon trail? And I mean, is it possible to do the whole thing in like 3 or 4 days, or is it?
That would be tough. You probably could, but you may end up in an accident like a lot of the people I saw by the end of the day. I think it's around 300 miles. I know there's a bourbon bike ride tour that you could do. I think it's 4 or 5 days around to the majority of them.
That sounds awesome.
what I learned in my research, and that's tip number one, do your research. I found out there's tons of the big brands that we all know. And then there's tons of these little smaller ones that are starting in the last 5 years. Yeah. So there's a lot to pick from. But tip number one, I spent 6 months, I'm a detail kind of guy, on YouTube trying to figure out where we're going to go. What are the best places to go? You can watch YouTube videos in just about all the big distilleries. And that helped us decide where we wanted to go. We also booked our hotels 6 months in advance. We booked a couple of the distillery tours 6 months in advance. Believe it or not, that's how far you have to book in advance. We booked a couple of restaurants, some nice restaurants, I think 1 or 2 while we were there. And they're even hard to get in because there's hundreds of people from all around the world in this area all year round. It doesn't matter when you go.
So do all the distilleries allow you to book in advance, or some like Buffalo?
Yeah, pretty much all of them you can book in. They encourage you, actually.
All right.
And I'll talk about how we got in some of them without a reservation here in a minute. So that's key. Book your distillery tour, a couple of them at least. The other tip is stick to 4 to 5 distilleries a day. Because as I was saying earlier, we found out talking to a lot of distilleries, some people try to do 8, 9, 10 a day, and they don't make it back to their hotel. You see them along the road with a smashed front end of their car. And we actually saw that in Bardstown the first day we were there. There was 3 accidents on the way to Louisville going out of Bardstown. But that's what we found out. That's probably why they did 1, 2 more distilleries than they should have. What are the highlights of the trip? We ended up going to Churchill Downs on a Friday, 5 days after the Kentucky Derby, which is really cool. All the locals go on a Friday. We found out, we got that tip from someone there. We were there. Had a very relaxing day at the track. I did pretty well, betting on a lot of my favorite pink horses. So that was fun. We saw the horses coming in.
So do they have just races there every day?
Yeah, I think they're there all the time. But Friday is, they say the locals go, so it's not as crowded. There's a lot of tourists.
That I don't know much about racing. Is that horseback racing, or is it where they're riding in the buggy behind?
These are thoroughbreds. They're racing, and they have races all day long. Like, like every 10, 15, 20 minutes, I think, in between. So you got time to go place your bet, come back, and there's another race going. So I forget how many we saw. We were there from like 11 to 5 maybe, and had a blast all day. It was fun. We both did pretty good. So that we did that. It was a cool breakfast place. I couldn't remember the name of it that we found. Some really good foodie places, restaurants. We had a really nice little boutique restaurant when we were there. But back to the distilleries. What was my favorite? My favorite was Old Forester by far. And I think it was because it was in Louisville, right downtown. It's one of the bigger ones, even though they don't distill all their liquors downtown. It's actually at another site. But so that they're in the original building that had burnt down with a fire years ago, we found out. Yep. But they have this cute, really neat still that's like 4 stories high. It's all copper. Really cool. Really good tour. We saw how they flame the inside of the barrels to char the barrels, how they make the barrels, the coopers. Learned a lot about the history of it. So that was
so they make their own barrels on site?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's pretty neat. Most all of them do. I say most of them. Some of the smaller ones, like I was talking about earlier. Yeah. But there's they call them coopers, or companies that make the majority. There's a few companies that make most of the barrels for them. But Old Forester had a great tour, very informative, great tasting. Got to do their whole line. What else was downtown? I mean, I think we visited 10 to 15 distilleries in the 3.5 days we were there, which was a good number.
Now let me ask you, that raises the question. If you're traveling with someone like your sweetheart, who might not have the taste for bourbon or horse racing, are there things for them to do as well? There are things that should be planned into the vacation for them?
Honestly, she wasn't a big bourbon drinker until we got home. She converted. She was a convert. Yeah. So, bourbon, that's a whole nother story.
Bourbon is not into bourbon, you just don't go there. You go to somewhere else.
There's other things to do, but I mean, you meet people, the history of it all is cool. Like I said, Bardstown is the place I would go back and stay if I went back again, because there's a lot of bed and breakfasts and things like that. Really cool. It's out in the country, and it's 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes in another distiller. You don't have to drive very far. Some of the other ones we did, Lux Row was in Bardstown. which is where Ezra Brooks there is made. They're only about 8 years old. So they told us where they ship some stuff out to other states to get things bottled because they're new. So
I wonder if they source from like MGP as well.
A lot of them source from different places, some of the bigger ones,
Right.
to get started. They just have to because, we learn a bourbon has to be 4 years old, typically minimum. And I think the max alcohol is 125. It can't be any higher. So basically when they distill it, it's much higher. And then they have to bring it down to whatever level, and however they age it is what gives it its flavor. The type of barrel, how long, where it is, temperature, all those factors, which gives you all these different flavors. What else do we? Heaven Hill. We went to. Quick story about Heaven Hill. I'm trying to think. Larceny. So they had this whole wall of white bottles of Larceny, and then I grabbed one like everybody else there. Walked up to the counter, and I spotted this black bottle over on the back counter. I said, "What's that?" She goes, "The white bottle is watered down. The black bottle is right out of the barrel." I was like, "Can I get that?" She goes, "Yeah, that's the last one we have." I said, "I'll take it." I think it was like $68 versus 38.
I'll put hair on your ass, man.
Yeah, that was my favorite bottle of the whole trip. Oh my God, It was so good. So we had that.
Did it
They had a
run
really,
Did it run hot?
No, it
Was
didn't.
it
Really. It was 116 proof, I think, or no, 124.
That's hot.
Crazy, but it really mellow. So try Larceny Black Label. Each one is a different barrel. There's different numbers on them when you go to buy them. They're hard to find, actually, many places. What else? So Heaven Hill had a really cool tasting room upstairs with nice bar. People were great there. Leather chairs. We found out, the barrel houses where they store the barrels. A lot of these places were building new ones. Cost like, I don't know how many $1 million for one building to put so many barrels in. So there must be some buku money in that business.
I think it's a ton of money. The other interesting thing is that I wonder what the process is for building a building, because so many of the unique flavors and proofs and so forth come from being in a specific type of environment, whether you're low down in the building or whether you're high up in the building, whether you're exposed to more sun and heat, less sun and heat.
Temperature has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, a lot of these barrels are in older buildings that are leaky, and so they can get hotter during the summer and so forth. So I wonder what the process is when you're building a brand new state-of-the-art facility to account for those things.
It's a lot of wood. I mean, I'll send you some pictures later. Maybe you can post it on the YouTube. I had pictures from inside Lux Row and a couple places, and it's just wood on wood on wood.
Yeah.
I learned that, the process is they're moving these barrels around different times a year is what gives it, the different flavors and stuff. It's really cool.
And I'm guessing they use wood as opposed to like brick because it's more porous. It will allow more of that environment to come in. The moisture's retained.
It's funny you say that. Most of the houses were wood. Some were tin on the outside. Buffalo Trace had brick because it's one of the older ones. So it's not a perfect thing, but most of the new ones are all wood. Yeah. They must bring in a mess of Amish to build the new ones. I mean, it's tons of these huge timbers. Like I said, I can't imagine the cost to do it. Anyway, what else? Oh, here's another tip. If you go there, the best prices I got on bourbon were at Total Wine and More in Louisville. They had a great selection of things that I could never find at a Total Wine and More near me here in Maryland. So I came home with some really, I think, what was the one bottle and bond that I gave you, or we switched? Was awesome for the price. It was just really, really good. Bardstown is very modern distillery. Had a fabulous restaurant there. We walked right in, sat down at the bar, had this massive bar. Again, I'll give you some pictures. Really good food. We didn't do a tour, I don't think, at Bardstown, but we did try some of their bourbon there, which was very good. We went to Willett, older distillery. It was okay.
Not Willett. Not
the highlight of Willett was we got into the bar, which they say you need to make a reservation 6 months in advance. And there was 2 seats at the bar. We got in there and I don't know, was it the cocktail where they have like CO2? It's like, this bartender was great making drinks, and this guy was like sucking them down one after another next to us. But that was cool. What else with the trip? Whew. I think those are the main highlights. I don't think I missed anything. So again, to recap, do your research 6 months, book in advance, pick out a couple of your hotel, a couple good restaurants, pick out, a third of your tours at least, if not more, and spread them out. And stay in Bardstown versus Louisville. That would be my suggestion to somebody visiting. So,
okay, great.
That was cool. So we'll move on to our next topic of the day, which is a fun one. And I really like to hear from our listeners is why do we ride bikes? You and I have been riding combined, I don't know, a lot of years, right?
Yeah, too long. Too long and not long enough, all at the same time.
So I'll let you start this one, Hank.
Yeah.
Why do you ride? And what are the key factors that keep you riding, I guess?
So we've probably talked about this on our rides before. I mean, there's a bunch of different aspects to it, right? One, it probably starts with you just want to stay in shape, you want to stay fit, you want to exercise, and a bike is a fun way to do that. I actually came into it as a triathlete, started in duathlon and then triathlon, did Ironman and the whole thing. Never really liked swimming. Running I've been doing since I was about 16, so running stayed there, but it's not nearly as much fun as biking. You hop on a bike, you click into those pedals, you hear the gears shifting. I mean, there's something romantic about it, just riding out in the countryside with the sun coming up. You see, the fog lifting over the fields and the horses, and 5 a.m. on a beautiful summer morning. I mean, there's nothing better than that. And, you can hop in a car and you can travel and see things. But when you're the engine itself and doing the pedaling, and especially in our area where we're close to a lot of different states, you can literally hop on a bike and ride through 3 different states in a day. There's something very cool about that. The sense of adventure,
right.
The sense of accomplishment, riding that far and seeing different things. And it just keeps things interesting.
We're blessed here. Like you said, we have the C&O Canal. We got some gravel over in Loudoun County. It's I think it's the highest amount of gravel roads in a single county in the U.S. I call it luxury gravel, right? Because you only get passed by the Maserati or a horse trailer, maybe, while you're riding there.
Well, and so we're close to some amazing gravel, some of the best gravel in the country, like you say. And then on the other side, we have the Gambrel.
Watershed
here, which is some of the best mountain biking in the country.
Right.
People come out to the West Coast to ride this mountain bike trail.
And then the hills and roads around here are beautiful too, with fairly low traffic.
We're lucky.
Yeah, so that's cool. Anything else on my end?
Why are you still riding after all these decades?
I boil it down to 4 key things. Mental health. When I first started riding 22 years ago, I got divorced. Funny story, I bought 2 LL Bean hybrid bikes, one for me and one in case I found somebody to ride with. I never really ended up using it other than my rebound relationship, I think.
Well, it's funny. You started riding because you got divorced. I'm almost getting divorced because I'm riding. It goes both ways.
Yeah, right.
Bikes.
2 would be, to stay in physical shape. And as I say, I ride to eat because I like to eat good food. So, that balances that all out. And then 3 would be, I see it as a spiritual thing, like to reset my mind. When I ride, it's like when I'm a fly fisherman too. When I go on a river, I just forget about the world. When I hop on my bike and head down a trail, everything that was going on that day in my life is gone. It's just like meditation for me. That's the way I look at it. And then 4, probably the other biggie is my back. Because when I was 26, I think I went over the handlebars of a motorcycle, 116 miles an hour. And I just had my Hamilton Bermuda collar left and totaled my brother's motorcycle bike, but he never did ride professionally. So I guess that was a good thing.
Not after that accident.
Yeah. And then about 6, I guess going 7 years now. This is a crazy story. So my other half was in the hospital here locally. So we stayed at the hospital. She said, go home and feed the cat. All right. Saturday in September, I fed the cat. 75 and sunny, I'll go for a ride. So I got a football field down the road and I hit a pothole doing 25 miles an hour on my bike, flipped over and broke 5 ribs on the right side. So never heard the end of that because when she got out of the hospital, I was in a different hospital and she wasn't too happy about that. So
and you almost,
yeah. So
almost caused another relationship to end.
Yeah. So I try to stay out of the chiropractor. And this is another crazy story. I love telling stories. This summer, I was riding the CNO with a couple of friends from the Carolinas. Just so happened two of them were doctors. One was a back surgeon. And I talked to him afterwards because I have to help his wife with health insurance. And I said, why is it that I feel better when I ride my bike? And if I don't, I get grumpy after a week or two. But my body feels better. My back feels good because I'm riding. He goes, it's the endorphins that you create when you ride in your mind, in your body. It stimulates your muscle growth. And that's probably why you feel so good.
Yeah.
And it's so true. If I don't ride in a couple of weeks, I start to feel crappy. My back's bother me, things like that. So that's
one of these days we're going to have to tell everyone about our bike trip to the Smoky Mountains. I mean, I love cycling, but that one tested my love for sure. I definitely thought we were going to die on that one.
I just hope I can get you to do another bike packing trip sometime.
I'm
you
ready.
Said you'd never do
I'm
it.
Actually ready. I was chopping out shotguns today, so maybe I'll take that one off. We won't have to worry about too much.
Yeah, my latest bicycle, actually the last two, because I just did a warranty replacement on my Salsa cut through it because the paint was fading. They gave me a new frame, which was nice after I think I had 8,000 miles on it already. Anyway, is called Vigatore. In Italian means adventurer. So it's all about the adventure along the way, not the destination, I always say. And I'd say lastly, it's about the places biking takes you, the people you meet, and what happens along that journey like we did in the Smokies. A lot happened in, 11 hours that day. And we survived. We got to our Well, we didn't get to our destination.
No, we got 42 miles into the shit is what happened.
But, that's what made it such a... it'll be stuck on our brains forever, that trip. We'll never forget that,
I'm half ready to do it again. Every time I think about it, I think, man, I really want to do it again. And then I'm like, no, I never want to do that again.
Yeah. So anything else on that topic before we move on to our last topic?
No, I mean, I think we all love bikes. It's bikes and bourbon, man. That's
Good
what
stuff.
The world go round and round.
Good stuff. So our third topic is how has marketing your business changed post-COVID? I mean, you and I, we both deal with a lot of sole proprietors, self-employed, a couple corporate people. And, we'll start with you. What has changed for you marketing the last 3-4 years than prior to that? I mean, you've had your business for how many years now? You said?
Yeah, so I'm about to start my 7th year. So COVID was kind of right in the middle of my total life cycle to date. Mm-hmm. So, my business, when I started up, it was already set up as a remote business, a mostly virtual business. I meet with clients from time to time, but for the most part, people email me and ask me to do something for them or give me a call or Zoom, and that's fine. That's the way it's been set up from the beginning. But as I was building the business at the very beginning, pre-COVID, I had to do a lot of, pounding the pavement, shaking hands, kissing babies, meeting a bunch of people, going to business cards exchange, breakfast, lunch, the whole gamut. And I was doing a lot of that. And then COVID hit. Now, it also so happened that by the time COVID hit, I had built up my business, and I didn't need to do as much of that. But post-COVID, I have just been, it's so hard to get out now. Most people that I talk to, they would much rather hop on a Zoom anyway. It's far more efficient. You're not spending 3 hours of showering, getting dressed, driving to the meeting, having the meeting, driving home.
Yeah.
And it just so happens also that I'm in a position where I don't have to do as much of that anyway. So between those two things, I mean, I'm meeting with people in person far less. Today I went to Rotary. I'm a Rotarian, still do that. But a lot of the networking groups that I participated in, especially those in person or like networking events, I've really cut way back on that. And, I think it cuts down a little bit on the personal relationship that you can build. That is something that I think we've all lost. But what we've gained is a far more efficient and productive lifestyle where we have extra time for ourselves and our family. So.
Yeah, it's similar to me. I'm a little bit different vertical market than you. So I've been doing health for now, I think 11 years, and it's always been about key three components. You have leads that you get, which a lead, it's not usually that great through software, through the work. You have existing clients that give you referrals. And then you have networking, and probably I'd say the fourth or fifth one is partnerships for me. So I've learned probably last 4 or 5 years, I'd rather develop really strong partnerships with people of high integrity that can relate to me. I can relate to them, where we can both help our clients. And that way they're hunting me when they need help for their client. So I'm not constantly helping or trying to build my pipeline looking all the time. I'm actually being hunted by all these partnerships, which is great. So once they see I can help their client, a lot of times I help them themselves. So they get what I do, and I do a one-to-one after I meet them. So that seems to work really well. I mean, I think pre-COVID and after, I used to run around everywhere to network. And I think it was 2 years ago, I read a book about networking and said, how effective, what's your return on investment when your time, like you and I were talking the other day about billable time, is a high number. And if you're an hour and a half to get somewhere, an hour at a meeting, and an hour and a half home, you burned a half a day. And do the math. Are you making money on that?
Right.
Maybe long term, maybe not. So
yeah, it's really a lot about the quality of either the event or the opportunity to meet the person. And now that time is always precious, but now that when you've built up your business and you could be billing, you really have to measure, okay, what is, like you said, the return on investment? What is the quality of this opportunity? And is it worthwhile? And I think you go through that calculation, that formula, a lot more carefully now post-COVID anyway, because people have developed this whole different lifestyle where we have the ability to meet remotely and virtually very easily.
Right. So I think my formula now is almost like a work hybrid, where I in-person networking 50%, maybe 40%, and I'm on Zoom networking throughout the week. I mean, one of our meetings today, somebody said, how often do you network during a week? And I said, I usually go to 3 to 5 network events a week, which is higher than most people. And then I'm doing 3 to 4, I call it one-to-ones, a follow-up call with people I met a week out of those sessions to either help them directly, help their client, or develop a partnership. One of those 3 things are coming out of my time. So I'm very selective, walking up to meet somebody. Pretty much in a minute if this person is going to relate to you, or if they're a me person, or if they're about helping people. So I'm looking for the latter typically to work with and make sure they have that high integrity, I think is the key. And then in the recent year, I've been trying to develop these partnerships outside of Maryland. I'm licensed in like 12 states, even though we have a product in 32 that, my manager can help somebody in 32 states. But developing these partnerships, I've learned using social media like LinkedIn to do a keyword search and say, for me, partners are like property and casualty, farmers, state farm agents, life insurance agents, financial planners, accountants, lawyers like yourself, are typical good partners for me, mainly because I can help their client reduce cost, give them better benefits for health, and that way they have a number that they can work with them on their services. So it's a no-brainer once they see how that works. So using social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I mean, everybody's on all these platforms. I think is key. It's just finding that balance. It's almost like life balance, like work balance here. How do you balance my marketing budget to where I'm getting my good return on investment? Again, that seems to be the key thing.
Right.
Anything else you want to recap on that topic?
No.
Cool.
I think we covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to hear what a lot of everyone else who's listening has to say and in their comments. I'd like to hear that.
So why don't you give us a rundown on our next show? What 3 topics we're going to be covering next week?
We got a good one next time, Blaise. We got a good one. So as everyone knows, these are released every Wednesday at noon. Our first one just came out this past Wednesday. This one will be shown next Wednesday at noon. Make sure you tune in. And so next week's show, we are going to cover Elmer T. Lee, and at least at secondary pricing, how I consider it to be a bit of a dud.
Is that your uncle, Elmer?
No, I think the people who are tuned into this one know who Elmer T. Lee is. So I won't go into any further description of that, but that's what we're going to be covering. And maybe it will save some people some money. Who knows? We're also going to be covering something that near and dear to our hearts, our discussion of Chinese bike parts and whether there's true value there, whether they can be trusted, and what our experiences, or at least mine, because you won't engage, my experiences are with Chinese bike componentry. And the third is the business component. We're going to be talking about the effect that our lack of domestic oil drilling is having on our economy, and how does that affect our prices of everyday goods that we buy. So, three interesting topics. I think it will be good to discuss that and, again, hear what our viewers have to say.
Yeah, we have a lot of topics to come. I mean, there's so much stuff you and I are always talking about.
15 years of our stupid bantering back and forth on bikes.
We have a little bit of content for the future. I don't think we'll run out of content for some time.
Well, this is kind of our therapy. So Thank you for everyone tuning in, because you're our therapist.
Yeah, and so follow us on all the major podcasts. Like I said, we're on Apple, Spotify, and a lot of others. And like and subscribe and comment on YouTube channel. As I said, the links will be right in all of our podcasts. You can see the link for YouTube is available right there. So
you will find us on YouTube under Business, Bikes, and Bourbon.
Exactly. Great. So thanks for your time tonight. Thanks for the audience to tune in, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, have a great week.
All right. Take care.
Peace.